were just saying you've been with Service now for 14 years.
Yeah, well, nearly 14 years. It'll be 14 years later this year. So I joined in 2011, and ServiceNow was a very small startup back then. We've got over 26,500 full-time employees today, and that doesn't include contractors or interns. And of the active list, the funny thing about ServiceNow is that there's this platform with all this data on it, and there's a report that I can run to find out how many I am on the list, and I'm now the 126th longest serving employee in the company. But what I would tell a 16-year-old of today is that AI is the future.
Yeah.
AI is not going to take people's jobs, but people that work with AI will take people's jobs.
Yeah.
So if you're a youngster today, my advice is get on the AI train. We spectacularly made a big mistake, and we infamously climbed the wrong mountain, which meant that we didn't navigate ourselves to the top of Ben Nevis. We actually found ourselves at the peak of a mountain called Stob Ban instead. And funnily enough, our story went viral.
Welcome to this week's episode of Oconee Tech Talks. We are joined by Damien today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here.
And in true Oconee Tech Talks style, we're going back to the beginning to find out a bit more about your journey, Damien. So can you tell us when your interest in IT and tech first started?
Well, probably this morning. No, I'm just kidding. As a young boy growing up in the early 80s, giving away my age, I was always interested in technology. For anyone that's viewing who's a similar age to me, there was a TV show on BBC called Tomorrow's World, and it was all about future innovations and space travel and things like Alexa and smartphones and having smart devices in the home were literally a thing of science fiction back then. So I've always been interested in technology, but my route into working in the tech industry has been somewhat unorthodox.
And take us up to your kind of role with ServiceNow. How did that come about? I mean, you were just saying you've been with ServiceNow for 14 years.
Yeah, well, nearly 14 years. It'll be 14 years later this year. So I joined in 2011, and ServiceNow was a very small startup back then. We've got over 26,500 full-time employees today, and that doesn't include contractors or interns. And of the active list, the funny thing about ServiceNow is that there's this platform with all this data on it, and there's a report that I can run to find out how many I am on the list, and I'm now the 126th longest serving employee in the company. Mm-hmm. When I joined, it was about 350 employees.
Yeah.
So a few have left, but it's a testament to the company that 125 people that joined before me are still there today.
Absolutely. And speaking of progress and journeys, what kind of pathway did you follow to break into the industry? What sort of route was it?
Again, somewhat unorthodox because I don't come from a technology background. I actually spent much of my earlier career working in hospitality and in retail. I've worked for many of the big UK supermarkets. I've worked in pubs and restaurants in the hospitality trade. And I've even worked for some rental car companies, driving and cleaning rental cars. And it wasn't until like my mid to late 20s that I actually found a route into what we call the tech space. And I started out on a first line help desk, headset and login tickets. We used to say logging and flogging. So we'd log a ticket when someone would call in about a broken printer or a broken desktop, and I would just log their details, file it, and then send it off to one of the more advanced tech support teams. That was my entry into this space.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say are some of the key things, looking back at that very first job? What did it kind of instill in you that you probably still use to this day?
I think having a background in retail, hospitality and customer service felt like a natural segue. So although I didn't really have much technology background, obviously on a help desk, it is very customer service focused. And even today, we put such an emphasis on servicing our customer and providing our customer with what they need. So, that was like an entry into the tech world. And then by learning new things and by empowering and upskilling through knowledge base and through learning and training, I was able to slowly progress.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about your current role. What does a sort of day look like for you?
Current role, I often describe it as having the best job in the world. I absolutely love working for ServiceNow. I'm a huge, passionate brand ambassador. I have a fairly well-known profile on LinkedIn for talking about ServiceNow and about the culture of the company. But beyond working for a ServiceNow as an organisation, I actually love working in the ecosystem, working with partners like yourself, with our customers. And my role is actually lead of customer and partner engagement for our impact and our service offerings. So we have an organisation within ServiceNow called the Customer Excellence Group, another acronym, CEG. And within that organisation, we have a number of services. Now, ServiceNow is a technology company, it's a software company, it's not a consultancy, but we do have some consultants in our organisation that we describe as like our product ninjas. If you think about the concept of iPhones, if you've got a broken iPhone, you go to the Apple store and you talk to the Genius Bar.
Yeah.
So the people that we have in our impact organisation and our expert services, they're like the Genius Bar of ServiceNow.
Yeah.
And I get to lead customer and partner engagement, talking to customers, talking to executives. We have an innovation centre with executive briefings. I get to deliver webinars, podcasts, delivering keynotes and breakouts at events, not only ServiceNow events, but also third-party industry and marketing events too. So net, I get to talk a lot.
And how would you say your role has evolved during your time with ServiceNow?
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm on my third career at ServiceNow in my 14 years. The first 6 years I actually spent in the support organisation. It was almost a segue from my early days working in tech support, supporting customers of ServiceNow. They would log tickets on what we used to call the Hi portal. It's now called Now Support. And people would log tickets and I would manage a team of support engineers and later an escalations and a major incident team. So if there were high priority tickets like a P1, a service outage, my team of major incident managers were looking after those customers. And I did that for nearly 6 years. I then took a sideways move into our product management organisation. Now again, not coming from a tech or a product management background, I was given the opportunity because I had 6 years experience in the ServiceNow market space. So that was a great opportunity, and I spent 7 years working in our largest business unit, IT Service Management. And a lot of people still know ServiceNow for ITSM. It's clearly much broader than that. We have an enterprise platform that we brand as the AI platform for business transformation. But many of our customers start their journey with ITSM, and working in the product management team there gave me huge experience. And it was last summer that I pivoted back into the Customer Excellence Group, and now, like I say, I lead customer and partner engagement. So I'm on my third wave of career journeys within the company.
And reflecting on, like you say, you feel like you're on that third stage of your career journey. What would you say have been some of the highlights for you?
Well, the highlights, I always say, without shadow of a doubt, is the people.
Yeah.
Like I say, whether I'm working with customers, partners, or my incredible colleagues, I just love meeting people. And during the COVID years, when we all pivoted to fully remote and digital, personally I found it quite tough, and I know many did. And it was also a time where there was a lot of focus on well-being and mental health in the workplace. And I know that I'm a passionate champion of mental health. But now that we're back to what I call normality, and we're able to meet people where they are, my personal mantra is, I think remote working drives productivity, but in-person connections drives creativity. And you can't beat those ad hoc conversations that just fuel a conversation and lead to a discussion and lead to some actions and next steps. And whether it's an industry event or whether it's in the office, I just get a big buzz out of meeting with people.
Yeah, and you touched on your passion for mental health, and you're passionate about fundraising. You use your space and profile to speak and share personal experiences, but largely from navigating grief. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Look, I'm quite open and I'm comfortable being vulnerable, if that makes sense. So just before I joined ServiceNow, actually, back in 2010, I sadly lost a close friend to leukemia, and he was really young. He was only 26 years old. So his brother and we set up a charity team in his name. His name was Wayne Wilson, and we called ourselves Team Wayne. And we set off as a group of young lads do, with a bit of bravado, to go and attempt the Three Peaks Challenge. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's navigating the highest peaks in England, Scotland and Wales. And many people do this, thousands of people do it successfully every year, and we spectacularly made a big mistake. and we infamously climbed the wrong mountain, which meant that we didn't navigate ourselves to the top of Ben Nevis. We actually found ourselves at the peak of a mountain called Stob Ban instead. And funnily enough, our story went viral, and I found myself as the face of the team in the public domain across all of the national newspapers. I was even featured on the BBC satirical news show Have I Got News For You?
Wow.
And then all the fundraising just poured in because of this extra publicity. Now, Wayne's mum said that she'd laughed so much at our story and with all the extra fundraising that had come in that it had helped her deal with her grief. And as a result, she nominated me as one of these heroes in the community for when the 2012 Olympics came round. And I ended up carrying the Olympic torch through one of the villages in Wiltshire as in recognition for this spectacular mistake.
Yeah.
Now, yeah, I'm sure the official reason was that we'd raise money for a great cause, and I was recognised as this hero in the community. But I felt a little bit of a fraud, but, you know, walking the Olympic flame alongside people like David Beckham and Sir Steve Redgrave, who've obviously done amazing things. Fast forward 10 years, and obviously enjoying a very successful career with ServiceNow. And tragically in 2020, I lost my brother to suicide. And that's what's driven me to be a mental health champion and really focusing on well-being and mental health awareness. Now, ServiceNow have been incredibly supportive. They have their own charity platform, which is a bit like Just Giving, and it's called Giving It Now. Everything has a now in it at ServiceNow. And on the Giving It Now platform, our employees were able to sponsor me for a new challenge, and someone suggested, why don't you go and do the Three Peaks again? And I'm pleased to report that in 2022, after we'd come out of various lockdowns, in 2022 I did successfully complete the Three Peaks challenge, and did it in just under 23 hours. Incredibly, with the help of my ServiceNow colleagues and the increased publicity across my network on LinkedIn, actually raised nearly £100,000 for Mind, the mental health charity. Now that's not a solo effort, that is a colossal team effort. But I was, incredibly humbled to be part of that group that not only successfully navigated that challenge, but raised mental health awareness. ServiceNow's marketing team did a short video and a blog as well, and our corporate teams, they're just so supportive. In the initial phases when I was navigating my grief, they said just take some time, take what you need, come back when you're ready. There was no policy or no fixed dates about when you have to get back to work, and that culture and that network of support was incredible. And now that I have this elevated platform on LinkedIn and a well-known profile, I like to use that to amplify that messaging.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, it's clear you have, a well-known profile on LinkedIn. You're really active with your followers as well, or just in terms of networking, the people that are part of your community. What would you say are some of your favourite elements of LinkedIn? As I feel sometimes as a platform it gets a bad name now because people are a bit more sociable on it, but I think it's lovely to have that element. It's a new kind of networking.
Yeah, when I first joined LinkedIn, which again was probably about 15 years ago, I think somewhere there's a stat that shows you when you first joined. I think my first post had 2 likes. One of which was me. Back when I first joined, I just used it as an online CV. You use it to try and attract recruiters to put yourself out there with your experiences, almost like an online resume. So if you were job hunting, and then I don't know when the feed started, but then you started seeing these blog posts from high-profile people, and then everyone started posting updates. It is more social now. And I often refer to it as the Facebook for the workplace, even though Facebook have their own workplace product, which is actually being retired later this year. I noticed that Meta are retiring it. But you go back to LinkedIn, I think it's great. I think it's a network, it's a community, and I think that I've felt myself very lucky to be very supported by, again, most of my network are people in the ecosystem. They're either ServiceNow colleagues, partners, or customers. Or people that I've met on various travels. So often I've been at an industry or a third-party event, and you end up having a conversation and then connecting with someone, and I've created new contacts, some of which have become friends outside the workplace. So I always look at LinkedIn in a positive light. Perhaps with rose-tinted vision. Of course, it's got its flaws like any social media network, but I feel strong enough and empowered to just scroll past what I call the noise.
Definitely. Well, if it wasn't for the LinkedIn community, we wouldn't be sat here
Absolutely.
today. I mean, what else would you say is your favourite element about LinkedIn and that kind of sense of community?
Like I say, there are various working groups. It does give you an opportunity to showcase your career and your achievements. But again, the engagement, I always find myself, I've actually invested quite heavily in my personal brand. And I've had my manager question, are you always on LinkedIn? I'm like, look, I have some very focused time when I go on LinkedIn, and it's very intentional. But I've invested in my personal brand because I personally feel that your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah.
And I've got an opportunity to control that narrative and that dialogue.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be known for being Damien from ServiceNow, a long-standing history of working in the ecosystem and a champion for mental health. So I've put myself out there. I've commented on other posts on LinkedIn so that people can see that I'm engaging and not just promoting my own content.
Yeah.
And I really feel it has to be a bit of give and take. And if you look at other people that have been successful in growing their network and growing their profile, you'll notice that they do the same.
Yeah.
They'll be contributing content that's meaningful, normally posting 2 to 3 times a week, and then commenting, liking, and resharing other people's content. And that, there's some sort of algorithm that then promotes that to your network.
Yeah.
So if we're first person connections, you'll scroll through your feed and it might say, Damien Davis commented on this, and it might be someone that you wouldn't have previously engaged with. But if I'm commenting on meaningful content, that might be something that's then relevant to you, and you can drill down, have a look, maybe give that person a follow, or find that it's relevant.
And reflecting on your journey as a whole now, coming kind of back full circle, if you could tell your 16-year-old self something that you know now, or
I was pushing trolleys in Sainsbury's at 16.
Give yourself a piece of advice if you could. What would it be?
Don't sell your stock. No. I mean, ServiceNow's been tremendously successful, and I've been very privileged and humbled to have ridden success along with the growth of the company. What would I tell my 16-year-old self? I think, obviously, when I was 16, it was 1992, so there's some context setting there. But what I would tell a 16-year-old of today is that AI is the future.
Yeah.
AI is not going to take people's jobs, but people that work with AI will take people's jobs.
Yeah.
So if you're a youngster today, my advice is get on the AI train.
Yeah.
Whether it's coding, engineering, selling. Some people, again, I meet so many people that aren't from a tech background and they're not engineers or developers, but they know how to sell business outcomes. And if we really go in with that mindset that AI is just another technology, but it's solving a business problem, anybody can sell that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just touched on AI, but what are you most excited about with the future of tech?
Again, I have a somewhat biased opinion. I've just come back from ServiceNow sales kickoff in Las Vegas, and we're really doubling down on our AI investments. But the exciting thing for me is AI is actually not new to ServiceNow. Again, because I've been there for so long, it was actually back in 2017, so that's 8 years ago, when ServiceNow actually made its first AI acquisition. And it was a small tech company. We typically what we do when we acquire these companies, we re-platform them, so it becomes native to the ServiceNow platform. And we re-platform this particular piece of AI software as what is today known as predictive intelligence. And it actually gave us the ability to predict any field on any table in the database. So it meant for help desk engineers, when you logged a ticket, just by logging the short description, the AI technology was able to predict the category and the assignment group. And obviously it's not 100% accurate, but it's more accurate than a human. And there were studies by Gartner and Forrester and many other industry analysts that said, using this technology, we can actually save help desks, 12% of the time of the life cycle of an incident ticket. Now, if you're a large organisation, like a large pharmaceutical or a large financial organisation, and you've got a help desk that's logging 100,000 cases a month, 12% is a lot of time savings. So there's a big business compelling event. And that was back in 2017. Fast forward all of the AI that we've thrown in since, virtual agents, natural language understanding, all of the bilingual processing and omni-channel engagement. And now, of course, when ChatGPT came to forefront, everyone started investing in LLMs, large language models, and ServiceNow was no different. We invested in our own large language models, but we also produced a controller on the platform that allowed our customers to bring their own large language model. So we just gave them flexibility and scale, and then they were able to use generative AI to generate content for a business output. Again, creating knowledge base articles, upskilling agents, case summarization, incident summarization, just all of these time-saving business opportunities that were really compelling. And now we've launched Agent AI or Agentic AI agents, not just a chatbot, an actual AI agent that's native to our workflows across the platform that's actually doing tasks, doing work. So whether that's in IT, whether it's in HR, facilities, finance, we have these AI agents on the platform that are collecting data that's also in the platform, automating a task and putting that through our workflow engine. And we've got those AI agents. We've got what we call data workflow fabric, which is all the data that's embedded into the CMDB.
Yeah.
And then obviously the power of the database, and add all that together and it's just everything at light speed.
Perfect segue, Damien. We come on to the trending in tech round. So BBC News reported this week that an initiative using artificial intelligence sensors in the homes of vulnerable people can help assist in their care. It's being trialled by a South London council. So Sutton Council said the scheme seeks to provide a safety net for vulnerable people, allowing them to remain in their home for longer while offering peace of mind for their families and carers. Now, the sensors track movement, temperature, light, and the use of appliances such as kettles and microwaves to identify routines and alert carers when help is needed. Now, do you believe AI can enhance human well-being, or do you think it poses more ethical concerns rather than benefits?
So I think the former, and I'll tell you why. I think as long as it's governed the right way, then ethically, we can make those, assumptions that what's right. And if people that are receiving of that care have the option to opt in, and they knowingly know that they're giving up some personal data, that can only be a good thing, certainly for some of those older and vulnerable people. And if it allows them to stay in their homes longer rather than going to full-time assisted nursing homes, then I think it's only a good thing. And people might worry about, ethics and data privacy, but pretty much everyone under the age of 80, probably under the age of 60, has a smartphone these days.
Yeah.
And if anyone is on any form of social media platform, you've given away your personal data. I always find the irony of people moaning on platforms like Facebook and X, formerly Twitter, about data privacy. And I'm like, do you realise the irony of your actions here? But I think as long as there's a level of governance and data safety, then, if people have the option to opt in, if I'm an elderly resident and I'm given a form, and as long as it's explained to me, I'm not got dementia or something, if they are of a sound mind and able to opt into that and say, right, guess what? Someone's going to be tracking my, my movements and the heat. As long as they don't feel it's infringing on their privacy, then I personally don't think that there are any ethical concerns. That's my personal unqualified opinion.
And lastly, we come on to the this or that round where we find out your favourites, Damien. So if you had to pick iPhone or Samsung?
Well, I'm an iPhone user.
Yeah.
I'm an Apple fanboy. I've got a MacBook. I've got an iPad. I've got Siri in the car and Apple CarPlay. I think it's no secret that it wouldn't be Android.
Yeah. And Spotify or Apple?
Again, I think I've already uncovered that one. Look, Spotify's great. And I know so many people, they often share in their Spotify list with me. And perhaps I should get on the train, but already being an Apple Music power user, I'm just finding it hard to cut the cord and take the jump.
And Netflix or going to the cinema?
Oh, there's got to be a time and a place for both. Can I choose both? Like Netflix at home. Look, the kids love it, probably too much. We have to monitor their screen time. And I love watching Netflix, and it's great, after a day in the office, if you want to just wind down, there's pretty much so much content that you can normally find a show to watch, whether that's drama, fiction, or a documentary.
Yeah.
But again, if you're watching, a blockbuster movie, nothing beats that cinema experience. Does that make sense? A bit of balance there?
Definitely. I feel like bonus question, what's your go-to genre for a TV series or film?
Oh, for a TV series, I love crime dramas.
Yeah.
Big fan of things like Prison Break and
Yeah.
Breaking Bad, you know,
Yeah.
some of those iconic TV shows.
Yeah. And laptops or tablets?
I use a MacBook. I think there's a place for an iPad, but with my MacBook, it's there with me all the time.
Yeah.
I plug it in at home and use it as a desktop computer. I can take it on my travels, and because I travel so frequently, actually find it, really simple and easy to use.
Yeah.
I think I would use a tablet more, perhaps if I invested in one of the Pro options with a keyboard. But for now, I'm definitely a laptop user.
Yeah. And ChatGPT or virtual reality?
I've not got into the VR game. I see a lot of people walking around with these headsets, and I'm sure that there are use cases for it. But at the moment, I see them more as a playful thing, rather than there are many business use cases. I'm absolutely sure, and I have seen some examples where field services engineers are using VR to actually navigate hardware fixes. But I think ChatGPT or any large language model to be able to summarize notes from meetings and case summarization, creating content, or even helping you to create social media posts. So big fan of ChatGPT.
Yeah. And video calls or voice notes?
I like video calls.
Yeah.
I like to be on camera, despite having a face for radio. No, I just like that personal engagement. Voice notes are great if you're in the car and you want to leave a voice note. Brilliant if you're on the move. But actually, I don't think, like I said to you earlier, face-to-face interaction. And if you can't be in person, be on camera.
Yeah. And finally, Damien, if you could bring back one original piece of tech that's either now evolved in its format or it no longer exists, what would it be and why?
Oh, the old Nokia bricks with Snake on were great. But do you know what? Again, as a kid, I used to love my ZX Spectrum, right? Again, many of your listeners been Googling it, going, what the hell's a ZX Spectrum? Showing my age now. But I remember as a kid having my first Spectrum computer and playing games like Super Soccer. And the graphics now, I mean, when you look back at some of these emulators, they were so basic. But I'd love to bring back something like that as a bit of nostalgia. Maybe a little bit more recent, but still going back to the 90s, the Nintendo 64.
Yes.
Playing GoldenEye or Mario Kart on the Nintendo 64. I don't think you can beat that for a legacy gaming experience.
Oh, I think that's a great choice, Damien. But it's been so enjoyable chatting with you today. Thank you so much for coming on. That brings us to the end of this week's episode.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.